Motoring 2012 on TSN is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.
Whenever you come to sunny California, somehow it puts a smile on your face. Anything seems possible. And maybe that's why Honda chose California to launch its fourth generation CR-V. Because as one Honda executive put it, this past year has been a disaster, a year from hell. First, the earthquake and tsunami, which affected all Japanese automakers. But days after Honda announced it was back to full production, the massive floods hit Thailand, knocking their production back to less than 50%. And then the new Civic received lukewarm reviews even here on Motoring. And on top of that, they've got those pesky South Koreans breathing down their necks. So yes, Honda could use some good news, and they're hoping it comes from their second best-selling vehicle, the CR-V.
It's obviously a very important vehicle for them. I mean, second to Civic, it's their top-selling vehicle, so it's obviously bread and butter.
This is an all-new vehicle, inside and out. What we wanted to do was, again, styling, make that a priority. On the inside, add the function. We wanted to give customers what they wanted in a vehicle by delivering the total package.
This car comes and it's served around the world or delivered around the world. Really does work, and they've sharpened it. The styling is now very, very nice. Arguably the best looking in the segment right now.
The stance of the vehicle is still very SUV-like. We have lowered the vehicle to again give it a little more aggressive look. So that was basically the concept of the exterior design. The front end is much more sophisticated. With the new headlight design we've implemented and the 3-bar grille that you see from other Hondas, that's really the key that stands out. And you can also see it through the lower bumper and the overall aerodynamics of the vehicle. It really is much different with the new one in terms of it standing out. The previous one, yes, it gave a good stance. It had the SUV style. But with the newer one, much more sophisticated.
They've stood pat with the engine, which I think it's not a bad thing because they achieve everything they want to get out of it. So they've got good fuel economy, it's got decent power, 5-speed automatic. I think the problem they're going to run into is when people start comparing them against the competition and they start seeing 6-speed automatics and direct and fuel injection and, you know, this and that. In the long run, it doesn't hurt them. Where it might hurt them is, as I say, head-to-head comparison. People see, oh, that one's got 6-speed. In the old days, more speeds, the better. That's not necessarily true today with engine technology.
You know, most of the competition in this segment are going to or already have a 6-speed transmission. It's great for optimum fuel mileage. However, with Honda, they're sticking in this 2.4 iVTEC engine, they're sticking with a 5-speed transmission. The question is, why?
We, along with the team, through the development of the product, had obviously targets and objectives to achieve. And we felt the best packaging for this vehicle to achieve our fuel economy and our overall driving dynamics was the 5-speed transmission.
You know, in all fairness to Honda, with this 5-speed transmission, when I'm doing about 120, I'm only pushing about 2,100 RPM, which is about as good as you're going to get with a 6-speed transmission.
Rear-view cameras are going to become part of federal mandate very soon for vehicles in North America. So to take it one step further and to actually give people the different types of views, of course a big one for me is the bird's eye view and actually getting as close as you can. It's definitely going to be appreciated for a lot of families.
The CR-V has replaced a lot of sedan purchases because people are looking for certainly the utility and drivability of an SUV.
You know, Honda says the new CR-V is all about functionality. And you know where you need that? Back here. So, look at that. Easy access. This functionality is working real good. Now, the back seats, how am I going to put those down? I guess I got to go back. No, I don't. Because on either side is a lever. Pull the lever. And they fold down pretty well flat. Now, the privacy cover, where do I put that? Well, first I take it off, which is like changing a toilet roll. They have a nice little spot down here, kind of like the CRZ, and it's done. That's what I call functionality.
The single biggest improvement is the new all-wheel drive system. The old system was slip first, grip later, and 9 times out of 10, by the time it did grip, it was too late and you're already in the ditch. This system, they've added an extra computer-controlled pump that now primes the system so that you don't have to have wheel spin in order to have drive go to the rear wheels. So now it is more accurately described as proactive, and that is a big, big advantage.
We're very confident that CR-V, having been the benchmark of small sports utility vehicles for so long, will continue to be the benchmark with this new edition.
Do you know what's really difficult? Trying to talk out of both sides of your mouth at the same time. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
For over 40 years, it's been the quintessential British oxymoron. Fuel-efficient Range Rover. There was no such beast. Well, that's all about to change. On this edition of Test Drive, the Evoque.
When the Range Rover hit the road in 1970, it put a different spin on the traditional utility vehicle. Rather than picking up on Land Rover's focused and obsessive utilitarianism, the Range Rover brought a smattering of luxury and comfort to go along with its off-road ability. Subsequent editions ramped up the niceties without losing sight of its intent. Now, that original vehicle was embraced by the horsey set because of its ability to amble through a muddy field and tow a horse box.
The interior of this Evoque is very nicely finished indeed. The materials are rugged but rich nonetheless. The front seats, superb lateral support, and there's a 380-watt Meridian sound system that really does belt out the tunes with great clarity. However, this would not be a British car if it didn't have a quirk, and a quirk it does have. Where's the gear lever? Not until you actually start the vehicle does this knob rise up out of the center console and you rotate it to select the gears. It works, but I don't like it.
Where Range Rovers of old embraced a thirsty V8, the Evoque uses a direct injection turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It manages to wring 240 horsepower and 251 pound-feet of torque out of just 2 litres. My lone beef is the rather peaky nature of the power delivery. Initially the engine feels a tad lazy, then all of a sudden it catches fire. It's not turbo lag, it's the way the throttle is calibrated.
One of the key features on this Evoque is Range Rover's terrain response system. It's got 4 different modes. The standard mode is for everyday use and it gives you a modicum of off-road ability. However, if the conditions get worse, there's one for grass, gravel and snow, another mode for mud and ruts, and a final one for sand. In each case, the system alters the manner in which the engine, transmission and all-wheel drive system interact to give you the optimal behavior for that particular condition. It really does give this Evoque surprising off-road ability.
The power is fed to the wheels through a smooth shifting 6-speed gearbox. It is well matched to the engine. The proof shows up in the numbers. The Evoque canters to 100k in 7.6 seconds and delivers a speedy 80 to 120 passing time of just 6 seconds. On the flip side, the combination managed to return a test average of 11.1 litres per 100 kilometres, which is significantly better than any of its showroom siblings.
This Evoque arrived with the city package. Now, among other things, it brings a great set of 19-inch wheels and tyres. Now, they should be considered mandatory because of the good things they do for the car. Now, when it comes to off-roading, there's an old saying, be prepared. In this case, when you're off-road, be prepared for a flat tyre and so carry a full-size spare. Well, guess what? This thing's not prepared. An 18-inch temporary tyre.
When it comes to ride and handling, the Evoque is best described as comfortably lithe. The ride comfort is excellent and it accomplishes this without sacrificing the handling side in the least.
In spite of its off-road ability, the Evoque carves a corner with the sort of precision one demands of a BMW. There is surprisingly little body roll, and the electrically assisted steering has some real feel to it across a broad range of speed. In fact, it takes quite a lot to get the Evoque to put a tyre wrong. This Range Rover Evoque is a very nice vehicle. Plenty of luxury, plenty of power, wonderful handling, great ride, and considering it's a Range Rover, pretty darn good fuel economy. But it wouldn't be a British car if it wasn't quirky, and that gear lever, just too quirky for my taste.
Riddle me this, Cape Crusader. When is a superhero like a traffic signal? Go to motoringtv.com to find out the answer to this and so many other pressing questions.
Most people want things that they can't afford. Right? We're all like that. So how can we get the sophistication, premium look and feel, kind of a high-end look to this car, you know? Really try and elevate the image of the car, and I think that's a big plus with the CX-5. It really looks like a more expensive car than it actually is, and I think that's a big draw to the Mazda brand to get that aspirational customer.
You know, when you're buying a vehicle, along with the sticker price, the manufacturer puts up the fuel economy, and usually that is achieved in very unreal, perfect conditions. When it comes to fuel economy, it's all about you and your driving habits. If you drive it like you stole it, well, you know what's going to happen. Well, a lot of manufacturers like Honda are trying to assist you, as in the Eco button and Eco Assist on this CR-V. When it's engaged, it will show you on the instrument panel when you are driving in that sweet spot to get the very best fuel economy. Not bad. All right, let's join Bill Gardner with his tip of the week.
Our motoring tip of the week concerns the intervals that you service your vehicle at. Now, modern vehicles are getting great. We've got maintenance required lights. We've got oil life monitors that display on the dash the percentage of oil life remaining on your vehicle. It's great information for the driver of that vehicle so that he or she can decide when that vehicle needs to get that critical service. Let's talk about the filters that protect your engine, the air, oil, and fuel filters. Extremely important first line of defense for your engine. This air filter, for example, filters out all the harmful contaminants and particles that could wear out your engine prematurely. So it's important that you use a quality filter and you change it at the right intervals. That's often described in your owner's manual in terms of number of kilometers between changes, but here's a great example of modern vehicle technology. This is a GM late model truck. Starting in the mid-90s, GM started installing a filter minder on here. It's basically a gauge that tells you if that air filter is restricted. You can look at this gauge without even having to open up the air filter housing or container to look at the filter. You can tell if the filter inside is restricted. Great, simple little way to keep track of your vehicle, make sure it's properly protected. The air filter being the first line of defense on engine wear, the oil filter, important as well. Make sure you're changing them at the prescribed intervals. That's your motoring tip of the week.
Now, winter may be a distant memory as you watch this, but for yours truly, it is cold out here, and I hate the cold. So why am I standing on a frozen lake in Gimli, Manitoba? Well, you see, Mercedes-Benz invited a whole bunch of automotive journalists here to check out their 4MATIC system, which is an all-wheel drive system. Fine, but it's been around for 25 years. It's a huge success because almost every car they sell has the 4MATIC. So what's the big deal?
We're here to see how great the 4MATIC system is, and really it's just so seamless in its everyday operation. We wanted to get out here and just show really what it's capable of and really what the vehicle's doing, because if you don't know, it's doing so much behind the scenes. If you don't see it in a setting like this, you need to see that to really appreciate how much 4MATIC is doing behind the scenes to help drivers stay on the road and stay safe.
We're out having fun, Brad. This is as much fun as you can have in a car with your clothes on, learning how to drive on ice and snow.
Seriously though, now.
Well, I actually am quite serious. This is a lot of fun, and it teaches drivers a lot of skills that they don't normally have a chance to practice. We're always taught to avoid going into a slide. Here we get to go into a slide, recover from it, make it continue, do whatever we want. We get to see how the system works and what it does in each circumstance.
If the consumer is on in a situation where there's split traction, say that two wheels are on a surface that has grip and two wheels that are on a icy or snowy surface, then the wheels that would be slipping on the snowy surface are automatically, they get brake torque, and that extra power is automatically diverted to the wheels that have grip, so it allows the vehicle to keep moving forward in a safe manner.
Well, what we're learning out here is in a controlled situation is how cars react in the ice, and it doesn't get any icier than this because we're on a lake. And so what it teaches you is it teaches you when a car gets understeer or when it gets oversteer, and they do it on a circle here so that you can see how the balance works with the throttle and the steering input and stuff like that.
Consumers will say we never get in these kind of conditions. Your reaction to that?
Well, the problem with consumers saying that is he doesn't get in those conditions voluntarily. It's the involuntary part you got to worry about, is when you find yourself in those situations you didn't expect it. And so by doing an exercise like this or with the Mercedes-Benz Driving Academy, you get a little bit of practice at it. So should it ever happen to you, you're a little bit more prepared.
The system is so subtle that it actually makes corrections that you don't realize on the ice. It lets you maintain control of the car at speeds where without 4MATIC, you'd be spinning off into the ditch, for example. The average person is going to get out of the car and say, oh, I didn't know it was slippery out. And that is the great thing about 4MATIC, is it lets you maintain car control without you even knowing it.
With our 4MATIC system, we see in the Canadian testing that there's almost no fuel economy penalty. We see 0.1, 0.2 liters per 100 kilometers in some vehicles, but in general, the fuel economy is almost identical with our 4MATIC models versus rear-wheel drive. And that's part of the mechanical simplicity that without the extra mechanical components like a locking center differential, there's less to change between a rear-wheel drive car and an all-wheel drive car, and as a result, the fuel economy remains almost identical.
If you go to a consumer and talk about all-wheel drive, they know what that is, but they won't know what 4MATIC is, they won't know what Quattro is, they don't know what real-time all-wheel drive is, all that. What they care about is, what do the wheels do? So Benz is trying to do an education program where they make 4MATIC synonymous with all-wheel drive.
A lot of fun. I strongly recommend it because just like we saw here today with the ovals, just going around and around the oval, it really teaches you about balance. Even, I've been doing this for probably 20 years, and even my third one was way better than my first one, so it's good to get a little bit of practice.
I'm in favor of all-wheel drive. Both of my vehicles are at home, and we love them. They make driving in the wintertime so much easier in any part of Canada.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2012 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
Hypocrisy, I hate it, as you well know, and I see so much of it, particularly as it applies to the automobile in our urban environment. Doesn't matter where you go around the world, city planners are trying to get rid of the automobile, trying to preserve the atmosphere for our children's benefit. Well, I've got 4 children. I want them to breathe pure air. But let's remember one thing I've said on this show 1,000 times. The automobile contributes 12% to atmosphere pollution. 12%, not 88%. That's the other guys. 12% for the car. And this isn't coming from the right-wing extremist media. This is from the official tree-hugging department of the federal government. 12%. So why are urban planners picking on the automobile? Why do they make it so difficult? I don't understand it. You want to reduce that 12% even further, make it easier for the cars. In Toronto, we've got streetcars out on the thing. They're supposed to be electric powered and the future and everything else. This is technology from the 1880s, except instead of being drawn by horses, they're now powered by electric motors, usually generated by coal-fired furnaces. There's a pollution saver for you. And how about synchronized traffic lights? When I was a kid driving to university, yes, we had cars back then, I could tell when the traffic computer was down because it took me 20 minutes longer to get to school. Nowadays, do you ever see 2 green lights in a row? Nope, stop, start, idle, stop, start, idle. We were in New York City a few weeks ago. You go on any of the major avenues, you can see the lights turning green, bing, 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 bing in sequence, and then they all go red, bing, bing, bing in sequence, and the cross traffic goes through. Yeah, traffic is crazy because there's 1 billion people living there, but at least it moves. Why don't we do more of that? Why don't we have more roundabouts and fewer stop signs? That's another one of my favorites, as you well know. Because there's one thing that Lee Iacocca once said. He was the president of Chrysler back in the good old days. He was at a transportation conference, and people were ragging on him. They're saying, we need more mass transit systems. You know what he said? I build the mass transit systems. Because in our society, the car is mass transit. And the sooner the urban planners try and embrace this and make it easier for car drivers, the cleaner the air will be for everybody. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Okay, so Honda is hoping for some big things and of course some good news from this 4th generation CR-V. What I like about it is the exact same thing that Honda is trying to push. It is a very functional vehicle. As far as design goes, I like the new front end. The back end may look a bit like an XC90, but it works. And the drivability, comfortable, just what you'd expect out of a Honda, although I wouldn't mind maybe a little more punch and a little more horsepower. But I do have one pet peeve. It's the same pet peeve I had for the Honda Element. May it rest in peace, a lack of exciting colors. But when I put that question to a Honda executive, he said, Brad, Honda customers are colorblind. I'm just kidding. He did say, though, that they like the more sublime, and you know, selling cars is all about making people happy, so who am I to argue? Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com, and make sure you join us on Facebook for the total motoring experience. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Mercedes is doing very, very well. So they're obviously selling cars and nothing is slowing them down. On the other hand, they got the most confusing lineup I can remember. I mean, there's a CL, which is a coupe and is a real 2-door. They've got the C-Class coupe that is a real 2-door. And then they have a CLS that they call a coupe but really has 4 doors. Very confusing to me, and I'm in the business. I got to think that customers coming in and saying, well, what's that? Might be a little confused as well.
Motoring 2012 on TSN has been brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.